Good evening, everybody. My biological brothers and sisters, and my brothers and sisters in Christ. Here we go again. Here we go again. It seems like every week another seems to be a senseless killing of a human being. It just happens to be black by police department or people on the police department. Let me just say up front, I don't believe for 1 second all policemen have something against black people and that they're just out to shoot down black folk without caring at all. I don't believe that at all. Because I personally have some white friends. I really do. That are Christians that I love. And I believe they love me. I don't believe there's a prejudiced bone in their body. But then there are some folk, black and white, brown and yellow, whatever you want to call them, are just mean, don't care about life, think of themselves as being superior, and they don't like probably themselves and don't like anybody. And I believe some of those people ended up on the police force with an opportunity to shoot and be mean and kill folk. And I think those people are beyond prejudice. I think they are heartless human beings who, because they have a gun and they are protected, they feel, by their superiors, that they can get away with it. Some of them may not even care if they get away with it or not. I was in the Army with some people that didn't care. They wanted to shoot and kill. I believe that a lot of people, men and women probably black and white, reassign themselves back in the war that's going on in the Far East, Afghanistan, wherever they are. They go over because they like the idea of being able to shoot and kill somebody. This is wicked. Something is really deep and evil in these people. Joanne Williams, a friend of mine, got together on a song and all collaborated on a piece of music, a song. It was beautiful. Joanne is an extremely good writer of music. She comes up with these tunes, and every now and then, not often enough, I wish she would, get me to sing some of the songs that she writes. But in During the 9/11 tragedy, she wrote the music to a song, and she and I got together and put some words to it. And the song went like this: so many souls, so many souls, so many souls did die. The question is not who, but the question is why. So many people had to die. And I did probably a couple of minutes talk in that song. And it talked about, we don't know why these people had to die. Somebody knows. And it's God. He knows why they had to die. I've been troubled by this. I've done some study in Black history. As a matter of fact, just for a little while, my brother and I were in school together in New York. And when we were fighting for Afro-American history or Black history to be one of the subjects taught in colleges. And I remember that folks did not want Black studies to be taught in schools and in colleges. They wanted that. They didn't want it. They didn't want it in the schools at all. So there were riotings going on and threatening to bomb the college, and so we'd oftentimes have to run out of the classrooms and stand on the street. It was downtown Brooklyn. Many of you that are from New York probably know what I'm talking about. Brooklyn Community College in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. But anyway, I know something about American history and slavery and what slaves had to go through. And everybody, all white people were not slave owners. As a matter of fact, there were some white folk that were very instrumental in getting slaves freed. They didn't like it. But the majority of the people in the South and up north in New York, New Jersey, as a matter of fact, there were lynchings in New Jersey after the slaves were free. So make no mistake about it. Just because you go north, don't think you are away from folk who are just as prejudiced as some of the people are. Some of the people that are still holding on to that master slave mentality in the South is still going on. In the North, big time. So it's there. You know, it's there. And look, I'm not listening, y'all. I'm not mad at these people. I'm not. It's the way they are, and they think they are right. But it's there. Now, a lot of people give Abraham Lincoln credit for freeing the slaves. Okay. If you read history and you study history, Abraham Lincoln did not free the slaves because he wanted slaves free. they did what they did, Abraham Lincoln and the politicians during that time freed the slaves because what was going on with the country at that time. It wasn't about he was in love with black folk that he wanted freed. It wasn't. Okay. I don't want to go into that. It's not a history lesson about slavery. But what I have discovered over the years, see, I grew up in the South. My dad was a minister, and of course, back then they were just starting to the NAACP and things of that nature in South Carolina, and my family belonged to a church in Clarendon County. Most of you, especially black ministers who know what happened in Clarendon County in the 50s. Ku Klux Klan just sort of went after especially black ministers because they said it was the ministers that were getting folk together and starting to try to form some sort of a coalition to come against ex-slave owners' families and to form the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. So naturally, my father was one of the people in the bullseye. So, like I said, I grew up in the South. I was around when the fountains were labeled white only, and bathrooms were no colored allowed. You go to eat at or buy ice cream from a ice cream stand, the sign would say colored, go to the back, or some of the restaurants, no colored allowed, and traveling on the highways, stopping at places where we'd pump gas, there was no restroom at all. We'd have to go behind the building or whatever, go to the bathroom, restrooms. So I'm very familiar with the treatment of black folk in America. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that in some people's mind, okay, and it's a lot of, you got to understand, I think I said this in one of the other videos I made about what's going on with George Floyd and some of the other people that were being slaughtered in the streets like that. The reason this is happening, y'all, get this straight, okay? In some people's mind, prejudice is to the bone. They'll never accept black folk as fully human beings. You got to get that. So, slavery in their mind is not over. And if you think about it and see the way things are, you will come to the same conclusion that I've come to. What slavery has done in some parts of America, it's evolved. It's evolved into what it is now. These people still see us as property, still see black folk as people or human beings or subhuman beings or whatever they want to label us as, need to be told what to do. They don't have the right to stand up and be counted as a human being, you see. So the slavery involved into this. Okay, so what do you mean by that? Well, they sign laws slaves are free. Okay? But that doesn't change their minds. You can write all the laws in the book you want to. There's laws that you aren't supposed to run a stop sign, or when a light is red, you're supposed to stop. But how many people run through the red lights? So laws does not change a person's mind. This slavery thing in America, in some people's mind, has changed the way they do things openly, but in their mind, they are still the master, and we are slaves on a different level. Okay? And if you could just see what I'm saying here. We're not on plantations working in the fields and picking cotton and sharecropping, not in the fields, but black folk and minorities are still doing the same thing in a different kind of way. Okay. Let me tell you what a sharecropper is. Okay. Thank God, nobody in my family that I know of sharecrop. We were blessed in that way. Thank God for my grandfather. A sharecropper was somebody when the slaves were freed, they had nowhere to go. Where are we going? Where are we going? Because if a slave was free, he had to stay in the county where he was free. He just wasn't free to go anywhere he wanted to. So that for a long time that was going on. No, you can't be going nowhere else. You have to stay right here in this town or where you were a slave. You can't go someplace else. So a lot of them did not want to be free. What is freedom? Who gonna feed us? Where we gonna stay? We ain't got nowhere to go. What we gonna do? We got no job. So they stayed on the plantations and they sharecrop. What that meant was that the slave owners would give them maybe 2 or 3 acres of land to plant cotton and corn or whatever, and they would do that. And they said, okay, I'm gonna give you these 2 acres of land, and you work that, and but we're gonna give you this. But now what we want you to do with your family is to take care of all my other property. Okay, and you could have this 2 acres of cotton or whatever, and you could pick that and sell that and make the money off that. So that'll be yours. But for doing that, now you got to take care of all my stuff. I remember very vividly that when I was going to school, a lot of us, me and my cousins and my brother, we would go to school, and some of our friends wouldn't start school when we did. We're like, what happened? Okay, well, it's time to, harvest the crops, because just when school was starting, they had to go out and harvest the crops. So they would come to start the school 2, 3, 4 weeks later. They couldn't start the school. That was part of the deal. No. Y'all can't go to school until all of this crops is fixed, you see. So why am I saying that slavery just evolved? Well, it did. Think about it. Who's doing all of the low-paying jobs? Who's working in the slaughtering factories? Who's doing all of that stuff? Who's most of the people that are washing dishes in restaurants and taking care of the floors and the buildings, and black folks and a minority. Well, that's what they always did. That's what they always did. And we're contented with it because the white folk own everything else. So we have to work for them. Now, okay, that tick a lot of people off, but it's always been that way. It's always been that way. So that's where slavery has involved. We're not locked in chains. We don't have physical chains around our necks to limit our movement, but we do. You see, we do. Because black folk in the city lives in certain zip codes. They still are in a place, the majority separated from people who have, and we are the have-nots. We are the ex-slaves contented to live in areas that the cities don't care anything about, because that's where the slave quarters are. That's the way they see us, whether you like it or not. That's the way it is, y'all. That's the way they're thinking. Now, some of those laws are still on the books. So what if they hide them someplace? They didn't burn all the books. They're still there. That's why policemen in certain cities don't think it's a big thing when they go after into these places. I'm going to call them now what they call slave quarters. That's what they refer to them as. And see what these black folk are doing down here. You know that. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. As a contractor, I've been in Valentine quite a bit. I've been in the zip code 28269 quite a bit, and some of the other, downtown, Piper Glen, those places. You ride down there on a Saturday evening, you'd be hard pressed to see one police car. One. Go in zip code in Charlotte, 28215, 28216. You wouldn't be able to drive a block, I don't care, in any direction without seeing 3 or 4 cop cars. They park in parking lots. Cops side by side, they're talking to each other, just waiting for the 911 call to come in. And when they go out, 5 or 6 show up. I don't care if it's a traffic stop. It's the way it is, y'all. Slavery has it involved. They still see us as slaveries. They still see us as slaves, and they still see themselves as the master keeping you in line, and they will shoot you and kill you, because back when slave was okay, the law said that no slave owner will be punished for killing a slave. It's in their mind. It's the way they think. I'm not saying everybody's like that. I'm not saying that at all. Like everybody in the South were not slaves. They didn't. Everybody didn't have slaves. But see, that demon is still out there. Still out there. They don't care. They don't care. If I have a doctor's degree and I was in Vietnam and served as a veteran, they don't care anything about that. They don't care about that. They still see you as a black person, so you are a ex-slave. That's who you are. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. And it's all the way up in Congress. You don't believe it? Take a look at some of those guys, some of the Republicans. I watched the convention last night on television. People don't care about lives. They don't care about it. Over 170,000 people died because of corona, because of the virus, COVID-19. It was not mentioned one time. No apology. One time. They didn't mention it one time. Nothing about how sorry they were because all of these people have died because of the poor job that this administration is doing. Okay, I don't want to get on that, but that's a whole different story. We can talk about that all night long. But the point is, they don't care. You see, they don't care. The young man that was shot a couple of days ago, Jacobs, he was shot 7 times. Listen, 7 times in the back, point blank, while he's walking away trying to get in his car. This police officer had a hold of his shirt, pulling him back, and shot him in his back 7 times with his 3 kids sitting in the car. You know, that's no regard for life. That's shooting a slave because that the mentality. That's shooting a slave because the law says back in the day, still on the books, not active because slaves were freed, supposedly, but it has evolved into this thing, and now they have to use the law to get you off for killing folks. George Floyd, Breonna, young girl, they shot dead in her bed. All right, all of these things. It's so many, I can't even keep up with it. But it's not going to stop because it is still in their mind that we are slaves. And the slavery thing has evolved into this, but it's still happening. We are still being killed. We're still being mistreated. We are still on the reservation. We are still in an area. They know where you are, y'all. They know where you are. They had a thing in New Jersey, New York at one time called redlining. And when you go to buy a car or go to pay for something, once you filled it out and once you put your zip code there, they knew who you were, and your interest rate was higher. The car that you were buying was higher. Listen, they got you. This whole thing, they got us, y'all. They got us. It's everywhere. It's in the churches. I listen to some pastors, preachers, or I don't call them pastors, preachers on the internet. I've been in some churches. Preacher preaching. What are they preaching? They're still preaching the same kind of sermons that the white folk, the white slavers, allowed the slave preachers to preach to their people. Same thing. They haven't changed. They're preaching the same kind of message. They haven't changed, haven't evolved. They haven't. Because, see, they have that same mentality. Not everybody, some. And as long as we don't get that, we will always be under their rule. So, what's the answer? We have to do something about it. We have to do something about it. We have to do something about it. We are either going to have to get together and teach and get our people to understand where they are coming from. Because if you don't understand your enemy, you will never defeat him. You won't. Understand how they see us and what their game plan is. Understand to them what they have. It's still a slave. That's why they treat us that way. So we have to do something about it. I know everybody wants to pass laws. Laws are not going to change anything unless a person's mind has been changed. This is a spiritual warfare that we're dealing with. That's what it is, a spiritual warfare. We have to get together with white folk who don't see things the way they see it. And we have to put our minds together, our spirits together, and come up with a solution, or this is going to go on forever. Not going to stop. Not going to stop. They shot the kid down in the Wendy's parking lot in Georgia a couple of weeks ago. 11 cops chased a young man, 11, in Louisiana a couple of weeks ago. They shot him, all of them, I don't know, several of them just shot him and killed him. Young man got shot the other night 7 times in the back, point blank. It's not going to stop because they still see us as property. And in their mind, as twisted as it seems, they're still living under that and believing in their mind, they still believe that if we kill this slave, we can get away with it. Because that's the way they see you, whether you like it or not. That's the way they see you. I ain't no slave. Well, that's the way you see you. That's the way they see us. And I get that. I get that. I get prejudice. I understand prejudice. I've been black a long time. I understand prejudice. I know when people are prejudiced. I can talk to black folks and know they don't care for me. I can talk to white folks and know they don't care for me. So what do? Stay away from them. Not mad at them, but I stay away from them. You know why? Because I want to come back home. I want to get home. I'm not going to do something I worry about every time my babies, I got 3 grandsons here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Every time they go somewhere, I'm concerned. I have to tell them that story. I have to tell them that story. I told them over and over again. No. Your rights are good, but there are times your rights don't mean anything to a person that's prejudiced and don't see you as a human being. They don't care nothing about rights. They don't care. You're dealing with the people, with the mindset and belief that black folks don't mean nothing. I can do it and get away with it. You dealing with people, the same mindset that used to come out of church on Sundays before they had dinner and go to a lynching tree in the town square and hang slaves for entertainment while the little boys, girls sat around and watched these people, ropes around their necks, hanging and kicking and dying from a noose around their neck. These are the that's that spirit that's still right here today. That's why they could kneel on George Floyd's neck. Care? That's why they could shoot a guy in the back point blank 7 times. They don't care. That's why the guy running away in the Wendy's parking lot shot him down. That's why. That spirit is still here. It's still here among us. Same people, the same spirit, not everybody, same people, same spirit, that they use little babies owned by slaves as bait for alligators in the bayous. Oh, you don't believe me? You don't believe they used to tie babies in the water when they kick and scream was bait for alligators? You don't believe that? Okay. Same people. Think they care about you? No. Is it going to keep on? Yes. Why? Because it's allowed. And I hear people say, well, America's not a prejudice. Well, maybe the whole of America is not, but you certainly have people in America that is prejudiced to the core. And if you have a leader that promote this nonsense, it is going to get worse. And that's exactly what it's doing, you see. That's what it's doing. You have the highest law in the country, the Attorney General, our president, who doesn't say anything about it, who says there's good people on both sides. There's nothing good about folk marching down the streets with torches. Ku Klux Klans now, they're bold because the highest man in the land says it's all right. They're my friends. They don't wear the hoods anymore. They just show up. They show up at rallies with AK rifles, shotguns. They show up at rallies. Show up at rallies. And then black folks come and try to march and they lock them up. Who is worse? The people with the rifles, AK-47, these guns? Who is worse? People who try to march, peaceful march, protesting? Well, you shouldn't be protesting. What are you supposed to do? They're tired of people getting shot. It's wrong. Yes, people can't hold it in. They do something and you get mad at them because they're sick and tired of their kids being shot down and they want to voice their opinion about it. And the Constitution gives us a right to protest. But no, not you. Not you. Slaves don't have the right to do that. You're a slave, so you don't get the right to do that. You don't have to do that. You don't have the right to do that. You can't protest. You can't do that. You have to shut up and do what we tell you to do. I don't care if you didn't do anything wrong. When I tell you to get down on the ground and put your face on the ground and let me kneel on your neck, you better not move your feet, your hand, or your head, and you better not say anything, all right? Or I'll just put my knee on your neck. And I have one of my other buddies standing your knee in your back and the other one will hold your legs. And you better not say anything because that's the way they treated slaves. And you wonder why they're doing it? They're doing it because they think that we are still slaves. Don't live on plantations, but you're still a slave. That's what it is, folk. So many souls, so many souls, so many souls, they did die. The question is not who, but the question is why so many people had to die. The question is not who, the question is why. Because we are considered as property and slaves that were freed the wrong way and it should not have been done. And we need to get them back on the plantation and everything will be okay. We need to be in control and in charge. If they had never been freed in the first place, we wouldn't have this trouble now. Yeah. Because back in the day, you see, when you walk down the street in some of the southern cities, even right now, white folk walking down the street, right? You step aside and let them by. Back in the day, black man better not look at a white woman. Even after the, well, yes, back in the 80s, 70s, 90s. Don't look at a white woman. Don't look the master in the eyes. Bow your heads. So, slavery did not go away, folks. Believe me, it has evolved into what's going on right now. That's why black folk are being shot down in the streets like dogs. And the laws will say, we'll tell you what happened the way we want to fix it. And ain't nothing you can do about it. So they're going to march on Washington. Okay. And get a law in George Floyd's name. That law is already out there on the books. What are you going to do? Write it again? Word it differently? Black lives matter? All lives matter. Black lives matter? Yes, black lives matter. But is that just a cliche, or is it, what's it for? Who are you going to tell it to? Everybody thought, well, when they did that to George Floyd, the whole world is protesting, things have got to change. Really? How many people got then shot down by cops in America since George Floyd was killed? That thing, look. What they did to George Floyd was bad, okay? Kneeling on his neck for 8 minutes and 36 seconds. That was bad, okay? But how much worse is it than the young man was shot the other night? 3 kids in the car. Didn't do anything. He went there to try to stop 2 women from fighting. The cop came up. He's trying to break up the fight. He broke up the fight. We're going back to his car. They killed him. What is that? What's that? Because he didn't stop and they tell him to stop? He wasn't doing anything. With his kids sitting in the car. 11 cops, 13 cops, whatever it was in Louisiana, chased one guy down, and all the cops shot him, killed him? What is that? What is that? What about in Charleston not too long ago? Well, a couple of years ago now. Guy was stopped because, I don't know, something with his tag or registration on his car, whatever. So he runs away from the cop, and the cop, just shot him down in the back because he ran. A traffic stop. Are you serious? Yes, I am. Slaves are supposed to do what the master tell them to do, and if he didn't do it, he can kill him, and nothing would be done about it because a slave is not a fully human being, and you will not be arrested for killing an animal, whatever they were calling us. We're not a human being, not a fully human being, that. Yeah, so that's now that you have the answer for the question, okay, we got to figure out what we're going to do about that now that we know what it is. Slavery has involved laws on the, no, we're free. Are you serious? Free? To be frank about it, slaves had it worse. People, black folk had it worse after slavery, the few years after slavery, because they weren't owned by slave folk. Okay? So nobody cared. Nobody cared. They didn't have anything to lose. So they could be treated, at least when they were slaves on the farm, the farmers cared because of their property. They needed to take care of them a little bit because they needed them to work all day. But when they were freed, standing around on the street, they said, well, no, you can't. No more than two of y'all can stand together. They put them in prisons, farmed them out to work for companies. And they were locked up in jail. So the county was getting 25 cents a day for these people that were free to work. And they worked them to death. Didn't feed them, didn't take care of them. When they got a cold, they just died and they buried them. Go back and get another one. 25 cents a day or whatever they were paying the county or the jailer. So they would arrest them. They were making money. They were making money off people after they locked them up for doing nothing. Companies still getting rich off the backs of black and brown folk. Who else is going to pick oranges? Who else is going to work in the factory and kill the chickens and cut them up and send them out? Who else is going to kill the hogs? And who else is going to do that? White folk ain't going to do it. They said it. I saw a documentary. Documentary where the white folks said that, look, our kids are not going to work in the factories killing the hogs and cut them up. They won't do it. So we have to have the Hispanics. We gotta. California said, no, you can't be sending people back across the border. Who's going to pick all of these fruit out here? Who's going to do that? Florida said, no. Who's going to pick the oranges? Slavery has evolved. Who's going to do it? Who's going to build the buildings right around Charlotte, any city? See who's building these skyscrapers. Go look on the roads. Who's building the roads? Look in the cities. Who's driving the buses and the subways? Who's doing it? Slavery has evolved. Slavery has evolved into what it is now. Are you living on a plantation? No, but you're living in a zip code. They got you. Tell your kids to be careful. And you be careful. Because if you're black, there's a good possibility some policeman with a spirit that lived in a slave owner will stop you. And because he asks you for your license and you reach in your back pocket, he'll shoot you in your face and said, I thought he was going for his gun. And he'll get away with it. Because the judge has the same spirit. The captain and the police headquarters may have the same spirit. Certainly, The president has the same spirit. Be careful. That's it. Talk back to me. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. Like I said, this is not to everybody. This is not to everybody. My white friends that I love, you know who I am. You know who I am. You know Sam. I love you. You love me. I pray for you. Appreciate your church. Have breakfast together. I'm not mad at you. But you and I agree. You said it. Yes. Hate it. People that are marching in the street, white folk, just as many as black folk sometimes, they hate it. They hate it. They don't like it. They don't know the history. The history of the black folk, slaves in America is not the true history. It's his story told the way they want it told. Not history, but his story. His story. The way he wants it told. God bless you. Be well.